Hey, my name is Isaac, and today I'll be testing these Xbox original games. This is my Xbox original. I recently declared it dead because it refuses to read discs, and the parts were way too expensive for me to justify repairing it. It sucks that I can't play games on this thing anymore. I know that both my Xbox 360 and my Xbox One X can play some of my Xbox original titles through backwards compatibility. I could Google which titles are backwards compatible, but where's the fun in that? Okay, now it's finally time to sit down and try some games. Well, first up is Halo. I feel like this is the best place to start for the video, seeing as how this is Microsoft's flagship title for the Xbox original at the time. Although I'm very disappointed to find that the first Halo is not backwards compatible on the Xbox One X, especially since this is the first party title. Moving on to the Xbox 360, I know from past experience that OG Halo will work on the Xbox 360, thankfully. I still think it's really odd that Microsoft doesn't support their flagship titles on their later consoles. Alright, if Halo 1 worked on the Xbox 360, then I would hope that Halo 2 does as well. And to no surprise, Halo 2 works on the Xbox 360. Although it looks like the same story for Halo 2 on the Xbox One, which is really sad that Microsoft doesn't support their own first-party title. With Spider-Man, I couldn't even get the game to register on the Xbox One the first time I put it in. I tried pulling the game out and putting it back in, and that made the Xbox One read the game, but it's still the same old situation, sadly. Switching back over to the Xbox 360, we find that Spider-Man 1 does work, and to be honest, I didn't expect Spider-Man 1 to work on the Xbox 360. So far, I'm impressed with the Xbox 360's backwards compatibility. While the emulation certainly isn't perfect, it was very playable. It looks like Spider-Man 2 on the Xbox 360 will boot for me, and I can load into a mission for a split second, but after that split second it says the disc may be damaged or dirty, but for now I'm just going to blame it on emulation. Moving back to the Xbox One, we find that Spider-Man 2 sadly does not boot. I don't have another copy of this game, but I believed I played Spider-Man 2 all the time on the PS2 when I was a kid, so it's a little sad to see that I can't get Spider-Man 2 working. To no surprise, Call of Duty Finest Hour won't boot, which was also the first Call of Duty on console. I'm getting disappointed with the Xbox One X at this point. I'm very happy that Call of Duty Finest Hour is backwards compatible on the Xbox 360. The gameplay seems to be very playable as well, compared to the very low FPS on the PlayStation 2 edition. I grew up playing Call of Duty Finest Hour on the PlayStation 2 and have beat Call of Duty Finest Hour dozens of times on the PlayStation 2. But I would love to actually do a full playthrough on the Xbox Original Edition to see how the two compare. The only thing that disappoints me in both versions of Call of Duty Finest Hour is a lack of local split screen. I'm not asking for a co-op story mode, I always just wanted to try the online, but seeing as how all of the Xbox Original servers are down, I don't think I'll ever be able to try the multiplayer. I would also love to get Call of Duty 2 Big Red 1 on the Xbox Original, but that'll have to wait for another time. But I think that both Call of Duty Finest Hour and Call of Duty 2 Big Red 1 are amazing single-player games for their era, if you just want some simple World War II shooters. Medal of Honor Frontlines is another game I've been playing for all my life, and I'm super glad Medal of Honor Frontlines is backwards compatible on the Xbox 360. It's really nice to be able to play some of the games that I grew up playing, but in higher fidelity. I don't mean in resolution, but if you look at them side by side, the PlayStation 2 and Xbox original versions of games typically have some graphics that differ, and sometimes pretty vastly too. I do have both my PlayStation 2 and Xbox original copies of my games backed up, so I could emulate them at any time, but I prefer the original experience on the original controller. I used to be super into emulation, but recently I only emulate on my phone. And while I expect Medal of Honor Frontlines to not work on the Xbox One X, it doesn't. Medal of Honor Rising Sun is another phenomenal game that I own 2 copies of. And it looks like the Xbox One X seems to be on a losing streak. Medal of Honor Rising Sun won't boot either. But it looks like another win for the Xbox 360. Medal of Honor Rising Sun is such a classic in my opinion. It's like in each game you're the 007 of World War II. I've always been a big fan of World War II shooters, but I think this is one of the few games in the Asian theater of war that I really enjoy. As a kid, Medal of Honor Rising Sun always confused me because I knew it was World War II, but it always had unique weapons and styles. Plus, the covert behind enemy lines secret operative agent theme is super interesting for World War II. I did notice during gameplay that there was some weird green effect while I was shooting down planes in Medal of Honor Rising Sun on the Xbox original, but backwards compatibility cannot always be perfect. Our first racing game, Need for Speed Most Wanted. I'm also just realizing that I hardly have any racing games in my collection. The case for Need for Speed Most Wanted is pretty dang dinged up from the place I bought it. Last time I checked Need for Speed Most Wanted it worked, so there's no reason it shouldn't work now unless it isn't supported. Need for Speed Most Wanted is our first racing game, and our first game that isn't backwards compatible on the Xbox 360 sadly. And to no one's surprise at this point, the Xbox One X is 9 for 9 on failing to boot Xbox original games. 007 From Russia with Love is another classic I need to play. I remember having a demo for this game on PC when I was a kid, but I could only ever play the first mission. I remember at the time 007 From Russia with Love being totally awesome. It would be cool if 007 From Russia with Love was supported on the Xbox One X, but it isn't. Going back to the Xbox 360, we see that 007 From Russia with Love is not compatible with the Xbox 360 very sadly. Conflict Desert Storm 2 Back to Baghdad is a really fun game, especially when you get 4 people hooked up on split screen. Conflict is a pretty interesting series, which was made by a couple of developers who left the Arma team to start their own project, and I have a decent handful of their games. When I started to test Conflict Desert Storm 2 Back to Baghdad, I knew that both systems wouldn't be able to play this game through backwards compatibility. Wakeboarding Unleashed is a super fun little game. It just sucks that the Xbox One X lacks support for Wakeboarding Unleashed. On the other hand, we'll be surfing around all day on the good old Xbox 360. This game is super fun to just hop into for a little while. It does have a tiny learning curve, but I highly recommend it. For all of you split screen folks out there, it even has a mode where one player can drive the boat and the other gets to surf around, which I think is a super cool addition. You can easily sink hours into Wakeboarding Unleashed, or you can just hop on for a few minutes before work, but it really is just a fun little game. I highly recommend it. Usually movie tie-in games totally suck, but Peter Jackson's King Kong is a must-play. The Xbox 360 has been our lucky system so far, and I was hoping we would be playable, but Peter Jackson's King Kong game is not backwards compatible on the Xbox 360. Although there is a release for this game for the Xbox 360, but the HD remaster of this game makes the graphics worse, but that's a topic for another video. If Peter Jackson's King Kong didn't work on the Xbox 360, then I don't expect it to work on the Xbox One. I love Peter Jackson's King Kong movie and game. Thankfully, I still have the PC version and I can play it anytime with my Windows XP machine. Playboy is definitely an interesting one, or a weird one depending on who you are. And no, there's no actual nudity, it's more of a Sims game, but there's only one job. I think it would be absolutely hilarious if this is the first game to work on the Xbox One X, but sadly it isn't. I'm actually kind of surprised that Playboy boots on the Xbox 360. It's nice, I suppose. The game is indeed playable, but do I want to play it? No. The answer is no. But I do think Playboy the game is cool to have as a collector's item. Onto a sequel of an amazing game, Dead to Rights 2. Although it turns out that Dead to Rights 2 doesn't work on any of my systems, surprisingly. Up next is this wonky wacky title out of the 2000s, Big Mother Truckers 2. As to be expected at this point, Big Mother Truckers 2 does not work on the Xbox One X. I was hoping we would actually have some luck on the Xbox 360 because I would actually love to put some hours into Big Mother Truckers 2, but we find yet again another game failing to boot. Ah, Morrowind. For its time, being ported to the Xbox original was apparently a small miracle. Morrowind is certainly a win on the Xbox 360. Although the FPS is a little choppy through emulation, I'm sure it's pretty close to what the Xbox original experience was like. Given the hardware limitations of the Xbox original when it comes to Morrowind, I'm glad we can play this one. Now this might be our first win on the Xbox One X. I believe Morrowind is sold on the Xbox One Marketplace through backwards compatibility if I remember correctly, and our test results show that I was right thankfully. I think Morrowind is our first game to be backwards compatible on both consoles. I will note the gameplay of Morrowind on the Xbox One X feels much smoother than the Xbox 360 with a stable and higher FPS. One of the Xbox original games that I hear is super iconic but I couldn't get the hang of is Ghost Recon 1. I do want to mention though that I am a fan of Ghost Recon 2. I did expect Ghost Recon 1 to work on the Xbox One X, but I wasn't disappointed when it didn't. Although I'm glad I'll be able to add another game to the working list because Ghost Recon will boot on the Xbox 360, and the game is playable, but I don't know how much of it I'll be playing. Return to Castle Wolfenstein, one I've hardly played but I really like the original. Thankfully, Return to Castle Wolfenstein works on the Xbox 360 like a majority of the other games that I own. And something I like about Return to Castle Wolfenstein on the Xbox 360 is that it has a 16:9 aspect ratio compared to most games I've tested that stick to a 4:3 aspect ratio. Yet again, we're failing to boot on the Xbox One X. Good old Rainbow Six on the Xbox original. To no surprise, we have another fail to boot on the Xbox One X when it comes to Rainbow Six 3. Although thankfully Rainbow Six 3 boots on the Xbox 360, and the performance is very playable, I'd say. Although we're not getting upscaled to a 16:9 resolution, it's still nice to play some of my 6th gen games on a 7th gen console. I'm glad Rainbow Six 3 Black Arrow is also booting. On the Xbox 360, Rainbow Six Black Arrow is playable, but very hard because I died about 2 minutes in, but it is playable. But when it comes to the Xbox One X, it's sadly the same old situation. Now, if Rainbow Six Lockdown boots on either system, we'll have a magical 3 boots in a row. Of course, the Xbox One X fails to boot Rainbow Six Lockdown. But on the other hand, Rainbow Six Lockdown boots up and plays well on the Xbox 360. Thankfully, I don't have to tuck any of the Rainbow Six games away, and I think out of all the Rainbow Six games, Lockdown is the one I'm most likely to play. Well, out of 22 games, only 6 of my Xbox original games aren't playable. I really thought that more of my games would work on the Xbox One X, but apparently the Xbox 360 is the way to go when it comes to Xbox original backwards compatibility. Anyway, have a wonderful rest of your day, and hopefully I'll see you later.